Hello, everyone. I'm some small town voice. The main purpose of the channel is to tell people about China. China is a hard country to understand. Also, there are so many fake news, wrong information about China-US relations, etc. So I feel like I need to raise my voice to tell people the truth. The past few weeks, I think the two countries' relationship has deteriorated. The weather balloon was an incident, even though now everybody agrees that it's just the weather balloon, but it was hysterical for a while. And now, the past few days, I read articles about cranes. Somehow the Chinese-made cranes is somehow poses a threat. And of course, the past few days has been a lot of talking about if China provides lethal aid to Russia. It seems to me that having a war between China and the United States is almost unavoidable now. The US pretty much determined there need to be a war with China. I hope I'm wrong, okay? But the war will be around Taiwan. It will be somehow the US will defend Taiwan. I think lots of Americans don't even know what we are talking about when we're talking about Taiwan. So today I just want to clarify a few things regarding Taiwan. Okay, so let's start with the Taiwan Constitution. This, you can see, this is Constitution of the Republic of China. So I don't think many people even know that Taiwan's official name is Republic of China. And this Constitution was written in 1947. I don't think it has ever been changed. But so to this day, Republic of China, where Taiwan's government is located, is still using this constitution. Okay. And here it says very clearly on Article 4. Article 4 says, the territory of the Republic of China, according to its existing national boundaries, shall not be altered except by resolution of the National Assembly. As far as I know, the territory hasn't changed in terms of how to define Taiwan. So in 1947, Taiwan was returned back to Republic of China. And it has remained so until this day. There hasn't been any changes. According to Article 4, there has to be resolution of the National Assembly to change that. There hasn't been any. In fact, if they were, there should be somewhere in this constitution, right? If you're going to change your constitution, it should be some kind of amendment or something. I don't find any of that. In other words, according to Taiwan, Republic of China's own constitution, Taiwan is part of China. Period. There is not much to debate about that. Taiwan's official name is Republic of China, and Taiwan is part of Republic of China. That's it. The difference is the mainland China calls China the People's Republic of China. In Taiwan, it calls itself Republic of China. And of course, there's also differences in terms of who is the legitimate government representing China, but they're talking about the same territory. Okay, I want to make that very clear. According to Taiwan's own constitution, Taiwan is part of China. Okay. Now, let's look at the US State Department. This is the State Department official website. Here is the US relations with Taiwan. In here it says, the United States has long-standing one China policy, which is guided by the Taiwan Relations Act, the 3 US-China joint communiques, and the 6 assurances. Now, the Taiwan Relations Act and the 6 assurances are US laws or rules, which China never signed up to. Okay, China never agreed to any of that. But the 3 US-China joint communiques are US-China agreed upon. So what are those 3 communiques? Essentially, the US-China joint communiques are the founding documents for the US-China relationship. The US-China relationship is based on these agreements. Now, this you can easily find. I downloaded it from, I believe, the Brown University's library, but it's very easy to find the documents. So here, Joint US-China Communique issued at Shanghai in 1972. Now remember, this was when President Nixon, Richard Nixon, so he signed with the Chinese government this first US-China communique. This was 1972. And in there, here it says, the US side declared, the United States acknowledges that all Chinese on either side of the Taiwan Strait maintain there is but one China and that Taiwan is part of China. The United States government does not challenge that position. It reaffirms its interest in peaceful settlements of the Taiwan question by the Chinese themselves. See that? By the Chinese themselves. Okay, it's very clear. President Nixon signed this agreement with the Chinese government. Okay, that the Taiwan problem, the Taiwan question should be resolved by the Chinese themselves. This is the first communique. The second one is this one, the joint communique on the establishment of diplomatic relations between the United States of America and the People's Republic of China. This was signed in January 1st, 1979. And at that time, the president was Jimmy Carter. That was President Jimmy Carter and the Chinese government signed this communique, which established an official diplomatic relationship between the United States and China. So this is the official document. And in here it says, the United States of America and the People's Republic of China reaffirms the principles agreed on by the two sides in the Shanghai communique and emphasize once again that, now there are many things they emphasize, not least this one. The government of the United States of America acknowledges the Chinese position that there is but one China and Taiwan is part of China. Okay, so this is the founding documents established official relationship, diplomatic relationship between US and China. And in there, this is re-emphasized, the one China policy. Taiwan is part of it. Okay, Taiwan is part of China. This is the second communique. The third one was signed in August 17, 1982. At that time, the president was Ronald Reagan. Okay, so President Ronald Reagan signed this communique, joined the US-China communique, August 17, 1982. And in there, it says one more time, in the joint communique on the establishment of diplomatic relations on January 1st, 1979, issued by the government of the United States of America and the government of the People's Republic of China. The United States of America recognized the government of the People's Republic of China as the sole legal government of China and acknowledged the Chinese position that there is but one China and Taiwan is part of China. So you see, it reaffirms the position, the US official position, there is but one China. Not only that, the third communique also stated, agreed upon something else. In there it says, this is number 6. What it says is, having in mind the foregoing statements of both sides, the United States government states that it does not seek to carry out a long-term policy of arms sale to Taiwan, that its arms sales to Taiwan will not exceed either in qualitative or in quantitative terms the level of those supplied in recent years since the establishment of diplomatic relations between the United States and China, and that it intends to reduce gradually its sales of arms to Taiwan, leading over a period of time to a final resolution. So what it says is that the United States is going to gradually reduce the arms sales to Taiwan and eventually have a resolution, meaning eventually it's going to stop sell arms, right? It's very clear what it says. Now let's look at arms sales to Taiwan. So this is Wikipedia, list of US arms sales to Taiwan. Remember, this is 1979 is where they established the official relationship, US-China relationship, okay. And then the third communique is signed here, 1982 in August. Now it must have signed after, right after this huge 620 million, here's a million arms sale. After that, you can tell 1983 here is empty. So I wonder whether this is the sales that covers 1983, even though it was agreed in 1982, but it's probably sales is here. That's why it's empty here. And then you see the numbers here. I did a summary. Based on this numbers, I made a summary. 1982, August 17 is the third communique signed. Okay, and the same month, there was a big sale, the 620 millions. And after that, in 1983, there's zero. There's no record there. And then 1984, the sales number was 325 millions. And then 1985 is 180 millions. So you do see there is a reduction, right? After the third communique, there is a reduction. But can you see here? 2022, last year, the sale is 2.14 billions. Now I put a number here because I will add inflation. People will say, well, you can't really compare numbers just by itself because there's inflation. Inflation is about 2.5 times. In 1984, $1 is equal to today's $2.8 approximately. So if you add that, you count the inflation in, approximately in 1984, the arms sale is in the neighborhood of 910 millions. And today, this last year was 2.14 billions. You see, this is Washington Post. It says, this is September last year, US to sell 1.1 billion in anti-ship air-to-air weapons to Taiwan. Just that one is in September alone is 1.1 billion. Now the total I just showed you is 2.1 billion for last year. Here's the number. You compare 1984, which is after the third communique was signed. In a few years, there was a deduction, right? There is a reduction of the arms sale, but then it's gradually going back, and last year was a record. It was a record, 2.14 billions. In other words, the US has been intentionally violating the third communique, right? It's also violating the first communique because the first communique said very clearly the Taiwan problem should be resolved by the Chinese. The US really has no place. Even Taiwan's own constitution says Taiwan is part of China, defines Taiwan is part of China. And it really is a domestic issue that needs to be resolved by the Chinese themselves. But you don't get that when you listen to the mainstream, when you listen to the State Department or the US government in general. I think lots of people in this country believe somehow Taiwan is a separate entity, if not a country. Most people maybe even think it's a country. It's called the Taiwan. There is no such a country called the Taiwan. Even Taiwan's own constitution says its official name is Republic of China. You never hear that name. That's the official Taiwan's name. Its own constitution calls it Republic of China. I want to make that really clear. Now, the new atlas, Brian Beletic recently also has a show talking, he is mainly focusing on the United Nations. I'm going to put his program, the link under instruction. You can hear him talking about United Nations, how the United Nations say about this one China policy. He also mentioned the State Department. So mine is complementary to what he's talking about. I think it's very important that United States people knows what we are talking about when we're talking about Taiwan. Taiwan is not a country. Taiwan has never been a country. Throughout its history, most of the time, Taiwan has always been part of China. It was occupied for a while by the Dutch, and then during the World War II was occupied by the Japanese, and then returned back to Republic of China in 1945. And it has been part of China ever since. But Chinese people need to work it out, how to unify. That's the Chinese people need to work out. And the United States should assist that peaceful resolution. If nothing else, the United States should stop selling weapons to Taiwan because it's in the third communique. The United States promised. Just that simple. But of course, they're not going to do it. And they're not going to tell you that there is a third communique actually limited their arms sale to Taiwan, that they're violating a very important document signed by President Reagan. The third communique is signed by President Reagan. The three communiques are signed by 3 US presidents from both parties. Nixon is a Republican, Carter is a Democrat, Reagan is a Republican. The three communiques, the funding documents, which you never hear the mainstream media talk about, but it's very, very important. And keep in mind, the US government has been constantly violating third communique in terms of selling weapons to Taiwan. Is that something the United States really need to get involved? That's my question to all Americans. Thank you. That's all I want to talk about for now. If you like my program, please hit that like button and subscribe. And don't forget to recommend it to your families and friends. Thank you very much.